At this point, I can't even say I'm fashionably late to the party. I've missed the whole party, but I wasn't able to finish watching Forbidden Door until Thursday afternoon. But of course, I'm still going to talk about it. So come kick it with me in this real quick recap, review, whatever you want to call it. Kicking off the main Forbidden Door card was the interpromotional three-way tag team match. AEW's Young Bucks versus New Japan Pro Wrestling's Shingo Takagi and Titan versus CMLL's Mascara Dorada and Mystico. This was a solid action-filled match to kick off show proceedings, and my favorite part was seeing Shingo Takagi as the difference maker, the solo powerhouse amongst a bunch of high flyers. But Young Bucks pinned Titan to pick up the victory. I would have loved to see an Unbound Company victory, but with Young Bucks in the hunt for tag team gold, their victory does make sense. And although it was in another losing effort, I really loved seeing Shingo Takagi and Drilla Maloney in tag team action on Collision the following Thursday. I was a little bit surprised that Kenny Omega versus Zack Sabre Jr. was the second match on the card. And I know that these are two great wrestlers. But despite this being an absolute dream match for a lot of fans, I wasn't anticipating it that much. However, I was pleasantly surprised because, of course, two great wrestlers. I did enjoy it more than I thought I would. Kenny Omega getting the victory made absolute sense, given we were all presuming he was going to challenge MJF for the AEW World Championship at Redemption. But we found out on the post Forbidden Door episode of Dynamite that Kenny Omega is going to challenge MJF for the World Championship on the upcoming Beach Break edition of Dynamite. And the stipulation in place is that if Kenny Omega loses, he can never challenge for the AEW World Championship again. Next up, Bandido challenged Jon Moxley for the Continental Championship. And I heard that this was actually supposed to be Callum Newman versus Jon Moxley in this spot, which would of course been fantastic given the United Empire, Will Ospreay, Death Rider storyline right now. But sadly, Callum Newman was injured in his match against Yota Tsuji at Dominion, so plans had to change. Bandido is going to do Bandido things. He is great, so this match was extremely solid. I was slightly concerned when Moxley was ripping at Bandido's mask because he ripped so much you could practically see half of Bandido's face. But yeah, again, solid match. Jon Moxley did, of course, retain the Continental Championship, and he gave Bandido a handshake of respect post-match. Jon Moxley's shadow continued to linger in the next match as Pac took on Jon Moxley's former mentee, Shota Umino, for his newly won IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship. This was a great match. I really enjoyed this one. Umino took a gnarly spot where Pac threw him over the top rope into a table that had been set up on the floor at ringside, but ultimately Shota Umino prevailed in his first defense of the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship, hitting a paradigm shift and then second chapter to put Pac away. Post-match, Jon Moxley stalked Shota Umino as he was celebrating his victory, but then a retired Hiroshi Tanahashi's music hit. He walked down towards the aisle and Jon Moxley decided to leave the ring, and then Tanahashi strapped up Shota Umino and raised his hand in celebration. In the most Forbidden Door feeling match on the whole card, STARDOM's Starlight Kid challenged Tekla for the AEW World Championship, and more importantly, the honor of Stardom. And I've heard so many great things about Starlight Kid. One of my mutuals here on YouTube and on TikTok, Portraits by Sil, is a huge fan of Starlight Kid, so I was super excited to see her in action against Tekla. Solid match, really fun match. Tekla continued to harass Stardom's president, Tara Okada, who was sat at ringside. She was literally beating him at ringside during the match, but unfortunately Starlight Kid was unable to gain retribution. Tekla defeated her clean to retain the AEW World Championship. Post-match, the disrespect continued. Tekla removed Starlight Kid's mask, spat in it, and then beat Tara Okada with it. Tekla is an absolute menace. On Thursday's Collision, she was still in possession of and actually wearing Starlight Kid's mask. Edge and Christian defended the AEW World Tag Team Championship against Clark Connors and David Finlay, and this was an absolutely fine enough match, but the main event was seeing King Switch finally return to AEW to a massive pop. I am over the moon that Jay White is back. And of course, I couldn't watch Forbidden Door live, hence me finishing it on Thursday afternoon. But even though I woke up to spoilers of this on Monday morning, I wasn't mad. I was so happy. And when I finally got to watch it with my own two eyes, I still screamed in excitement. Jay White is back, baby. Oh! But listen, he landed a Blade Runner on David Finlay, assisted Edge and Christian in retaining the AEW World Tag Team Championship. Jay White and Edge hugged in celebration, and Jay White being back, excitedness. But of course, there is animosity between Jay White and Christian, so there was no friendliness there at all. Seeing Jay White run down the aisle to reunite with the Bang Bang Gang was such a joyful moment. Oh my gosh. Bang Bang Gang are back at full strength. Jay White is back in the house. Switchblade, baby. Hey, hey, hey. But listen, on the post Forbidden Door Dynamite, Jay White cut a promo. Great promo. It was so great to see him back on the show. And he made a great point that when he left, everybody was trying to escape the rule of Death Riders, and now they don't seem to want to. Big time point. But he also called out David Finlay, of course. On Collision on Thursday, it was the Guns, Edge, and Jay White versus Shane Taylor Promotions. They were victorious, the Guns, Jay White, and Edge, that is. But post-match, aligned with Death Riders, David Finlay got his lick back on Jay White, and the beef is well and truly on. Two women who weren't even in the original bracket for the Owen Hart Foundation tournament in the final. You love to see it. The trajectory for Maya World has been amazing. She absolutely showed out in this match and even fought through her ring gear, absolutely failing her. But the closing stretch of this match was fantastic. Maya World locked Mercedes Moné in a statement maker, but ultimately Maya World would tap out to the authentic statement maker, and Mercedes Moné became the first person to win back-to-back Owen Hart Foundation tournaments. So she keeps hold of that Owen Hart Foundation title, and we got the announcement on the post Forbidden Door Dynamite that there's going to be a casino gauntlet on the spring breakthrough edition of Dynamite to determine who will face Tekla at Redemption for her AEW World Championship. So I guess the question now is, does Mercedes Moné face Tekla or perhaps Willow Nightingale at All In? The penultimate match was the 12-man Steel Cell Hell in a Cage match. But jokes aside, I loved this open-topped circular cage dubbed Death's Door that housed the chaos between Team DC MJF and Team Briscoe. And I knew I was going to enjoy this match, but I loved it so much more than I thought I would. It was a super fun match with loads of funny spots. When Lio Rush hopped out of that duffel bag, I popped big time. And when MJF realized that his Dynamite Diamond ring was a distraction to Lio Rush and he's doing this and Lio Rush is following the ring, that was super comical. Takeshita with that blue thunder bomb to Kyle Fletcher from the apron through the table at ringside was an absolute thing of beauty. I rewound it to watch it again. It was dangerous, but dangerously beautiful. Oh my gosh. And when they were laying there entangled in each other and the broken table, it reminded me of the Hollywood ending, or in this instance, Hollywood beginning. And in my head, I heard a soundtrack, and that soundtrack was Lana Del Rey, Ultraviolence. I'm sorry, it's so toxic, but this was a thing of beauty to see between Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita. And Kevin Knight, he was on top of the cage, and obviously him and Darby have their thing. Darby had set a booby-trapped backpack on top of that cage, which exploded, and then Kevin Knight fell from the top of the cage through tables at ringside. Crazy spot. Andrade was wrestling in 3 layers. He was wearing the Team DC MJF shirt. He was wearing a suit shirt. And then he took both layers off to reveal a shirt underneath that said F Don and MJF. And he turned on his team. and was essentially the assistance for Mark Briscoe to pin Jake Doyle and win the 12-man tag team match in the steel cage, which of course earned Mark Briscoe his AEW World Championship match. After the match, he said he ain't waiting. He's calling his shot. He wants his shot at Dynamite this coming Wednesday. And unfortunately, but as expected, Mark Briscoe did not win the AEW World Championship. And we also have Kyle Fletcher challenging Takeshita for the International Championship on next week's upcoming edition of Beach Breakthrough. Beach Breakthrough? No, Beach Break Dynamite. Spring Breakthrough, all of the breakthroughs in the beach and the spring, it's too much sometimes. But Takeshita versus Kyle Fletcher for the International Championship this coming Wednesday. Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay closed the show in the final of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, and this match was fantastic. I did not expect any less. However, I do think that some of the blood was a bit excessive in my opinion. Some of the no-selling was so self-indulgent, but unsurprising given who was in this match. But again, great match. I did enjoy it. I really loved seeing Swerve pull out his boyfriend's dead eye. That was super cute, as was Will Ospreay hitting a buckshot hidden blade. But ultimately, Will put Swerve away with motivation from Death Riders at ringside, a paradigm shift, a Death Rider, and a Tiger Driver. So as expected, Will Ospreay will main event All In at Wembley Stadium and challenge for the AEW World Championship. The question now is, does he face MJF, Kenny Omega, or perhaps both of them? As we found out on the post Forbidden Door Dynamite, Kenny Omega is going to challenge MJF on the Beach Break edition of Dynamite coming up next week. And if he loses, he can never challenge for the AEW World Championship again. So is that telegraphing something? I guess we'll find out. But the opening segment on that episode of Dynamite was so good, with Will Ospreay, Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, and MJF. I really enjoyed that segment. And also, the Jon Moxley Will Ospreay interaction, all I could hear in my head was Callum Newman saying, Death Rider Billy, Death Rider Billy. Because what do you mean Jon Moxley offered Will Ospreay a Death Riders patch, and then Will Ospreay was wearing that Death Riders patch when he teamed with Jon Moxley to defeat Lee Johnson and Blake Christian on that episode of Dynamite. So when Callum Newman gets, wind of that, let's see what goes down there. Bearing in mind that, Will Ospreay is also currently the 6-man tag team champion alongside Henare and Great-O-Khan. So yeah, let's see what goes down. It took me 4 business days to get through Forbidden Door, but I really enjoyed it. The absolute highlight for me was Jay White returning, and then the post Forbidden Door episode of Dynamite was a great follow-up to this pay-per-view. So I'm excited to see what comes from next week's episode of Dynamite, the Beach Break episode. And in this video, I think I might have said Spring Breakthrough. I don't know. I get so confused sometimes. Spring Breakthrough, Beach Breakthrough, Spring Break. It's too many spring and break and through. But if I've said Spring Breakthrough, I meant Beach Break. But let me know what you thought of Forbidden Door in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so that you don't ever miss a video. And I'll catch you in the next one.